get in the mail MSX games from Japan. Collecting without fail those shoot 'em ups, that's the plan. He doesn't just collect them, he also codes them too. Join us and we'll go on electric adventures with you.
Hey YouTube, Electric Adventures here with my channel update video for February 2019. Very quick month, of course shorter than normal, but actually quite a lot of stuff happened this month as far as I'm concerned. Very arcade focused, I will say, in that I have actually added several more arcade boards to my collection, and also unfortunately my arcade board fix list, but not lamenting getting more arcade boards. I've also in the process gone through all of my current arcade boards, put them into a spreadsheet, tested all the ones I have harnesses for, also spurred on because I have a couple of better power supplies, and as I'll explain in a minute, there are a couple more surprising workers and things like that. But new additions. So from my local friend Damien, he actually had a double of this board, and it's a game that has a lot of fond memories for myself. My local after I got married and got my first house with my wife, we had a local fish and chip shop, and every Friday night I used to go down there and order my fish and chips, and my good friend neighbour, his name is Mark, used to go down there as well, and they had one arcade cabinet there, and it was none other than Prehistoric Isle. And this is a mostly working, I'll explain what, copy of Prehistoric Isle. It's in the board's in pretty clean, decent condition, and it actually mostly works. You fire it up, if I get time I'll try and put some footage up here. The sound works, you can actually play the game, but you get a little bit of background graphics corruption. So I'm hoping that all that is required here is a little bit of a solder reflow. That's on my to-do list, so I haven't got to it yet, but hopefully that won't take too much effort. Other than that, the board's in really good condition, and I finally have one of the games that I used to play heaps back in the day. So Prehistoric Isle, the original game, is a shooting game. You have a secondary weapon, and you can change the position of that and what it does, so it has a bit of strategy in there. So not the same as R-Type, but I suppose it has some similarities in some ways to R-Type. So, very excited about getting that one, so thank you Damien for giving me that one. Very much appreciated. Right, get it wrapped up so it's all nice and safe. Right, and next, now the next three are also from a local friend called Aaron. And this one here, quite a big board, is a Gyrus board. Now this one works perfectly as far as the graphics and gameplay is concerned, but the sound doesn't work at all. You don't even get a pop out of it. Hopefully that is something that I can fix though. And otherwise the board is actually in really good condition. I do believe those who are really observant, there's a little bit of a scratch on the other side there that doesn't look like it's damaged any of the tracks. Other than, you know, the board actually looks in really good condition. All its risers are in everything there. They don't look like there's any capacitors that have been knocked around or anything like that. Now the ROMs on the top board, which is usually the soundboard, have had the tops scratched off. So maybe somebody has played with those, and maybe I just haven't programmed them correctly. That's always a possibility. But other than that, I am sure I will be able to eventually diagnose the sound issues with this one. It's actually got two pots on it in the sound section, so maybe this is one of the ones that actually works with left and right sound channels as well. So, but as I said, works perfectly otherwise. Once again, if I get time, I'll put some gameplay up here. Board away nicely. And actually, because I've been going through 20, I've actually run out of bubble wrap, if you can believe that. So one of the things I need to do this weekend is go out and buy a new roll of bubble wrap. Right, so next. So also from Aaron. I can't remember the person he got these off. But they're a couple of old classics. Let's put about half a roll of bubble wrap on it. Okay, I won't go all the way. So this one is, hold up this way so you can see the writing, is Terra Cresta, which is quite a good vertically scrolling shooter. Haven't been able to test it yet because it has a different size connector which I don't have the connectors for. I've got some on the way, so that one's on my to be tested pile. But the board looks in good condition. The main CPU chip looks a little stressed over there, so I'll have to have a look at that. I take it that's a maybe a 6800 or something. I really don't know. I haven't looked at this. I haven't even got the circuit diagram of this one yet. But Terra Cresta, another excellent vertical shooter that I will happily, over time, have a look at and see how, how working it is at the moment, and work out a repair plan. You never know, might be lucky, might work. The next one I have had a little bit of a go at. It actually, so it's Phoenix Hardware apparently. It's exactly the same as Phoenix Hardware, but it's a different game. It's called Pleiades, which is actually another game that harks back to my childhood. I mean, Phoenix does as well, but near my house when I was growing up, well, near-ish, it's probably about a kilometre away from my house, was a little arcade. I can't remember the name of the arcade. They probably had about a dozen machines in there. I possibly did have a pinball machine in there, but I can't remember ever actually playing a pinball machine. I was actually more interested in the arcade games at the time, and they had a game called Pleiades. So it uses the Phoenix Hardware, but it's a slightly different game. It has some similarities to Phoenix in some of its gameplay elements. So here's the board. I've actually started wiring up harness, and ignore my primitive work there. I haven't put any short shields or anything like that on it yet. And when I plug this in, I actually get a continuous sound going up and down, and the screen has solid block colour. So parts of the board are working. So I've got high hopes that I'll eventually be able to diagnose and get this one working. But I haven't even done, one of the first things you check is to make sure that these connectors going between the two boards aren't dry, and obviously check to make sure none of the capacitors have suffered actual physical knocking damage. I don't see any capacitors that are bulging or anything like that, but we'll have a look. I'm not a person who just goes and shotguns taps things, because you can often make problems worse. But another game that harks back from my childhood that I will happily spend some time on, and at some stage get working, and I will build a slightly safer harness for it as well. Time Pour. Funny story. Actually, because I've been working through the boards, I thought, I have a couple of Rally X boards, so I'll make a harness for those. I had all the pinout diagrams there, I got a connector out, I started soldering. I actually was quite pleased at how neat I did it. I used heat shrink on all of the power lines, had it all nice and neat, and got up to the stage where I had the power lines on and I had the video on. That's a good stage to test. Went to go plug it into the board, and the connector wouldn't fit because I didn't check the connector before I started. So yeah, that was an hour of my time I wasted. And some amusement some of my friends have had on my behalf. Now also with this, Aaron also brought over, because he wasn't using it anymore, it is a super gun. So it's got a jammer connector down here. These are Neo Geo controller ports. This, I believe, is a Neo Geo AV socket. I'm not 100% sure what this particular board is. I'll have to look up the manual, but you've got pots to trim the video there as well. You've got coin, test, service buttons, and appropriately, some filter capacitors there. You've got a mono stereo switch, So it's a way of yeah, basically making yourself a super gun that you can then go plug arcade games into a just ordinary TV. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet though. So, but thank you, Aaron, for that. That was very much appreciated. So as you can see, some very arcade related pickups. Also in my testing, I found that my Juno First PCB works fine on my test bench, which is going through a video converter board and to an LCD monitor. The picture jumps a little bit, but I've been told by another guy called Matt, who repairs arcade boards, that it will probably work fine on an arcade monitor. Once again, haven't had a chance to try that yet. And most important news is that my Space Invaders board, and this is also has been repaired by Matt, and works in the cabinet. I'm pointing this way because the cabinet's just over here. No sound as yet, but the PCB has sound, but the part of the power supply in the cabinet that feeds the voltage to the that'll generate the sound is not working, so we need to refurb the power supply. So that's the original Space Invaders power supply in there. Gary, who I'm doing this project with, we sort of share this cabinet, has an actual another whole power supply, Taito power supply, so we're probably going to refurb that one and swap them over, and then we'll refurb the one that's in there afterwards. So very close to having a fully working original Taito Cocktail Space Invaders, which I'm very excited to have, and hopefully maybe by as soon as next month. On the monitor works fine. Its driver is a little turned up too far, and it's only a black and white monitor, so we've just got to find out where that is on the neck and turn that down a little bit. That part of the machine is actually quite dirty, so I actually need to get in there and gently clean things, and obviously safely. So very excited to make some progress there. So as you can see, very happy, lots of arcade progress and things like that. Now a couple of other little pickups. I got this book by a good friend of mine, Oscar Toledo, a very talented programmer, has written lots of games for MSX and also ColecoVision, but also one of his passions is the Intellivision. So he's written this book. I got the hardback version because I like to support my fellow programmers, and it's a book designed for introductory programming using a development language called IntelliBasic, which is IntelliBasic has been developed by a bunch of programmers. I don't have their names in front of me at the moment, but this is a really good guide on how you can program games. They've even got a pretty decent go at a simple Donkey Kong game. They call it something Monkey Moon, as they to get around copyright there. So you actually make Game of Ball, Monkey Moon, Space Raider and Bouncy Cube. And it shows those, and then in the back of the book it actually has a list and a couple of examples of actual direct assembly language, because writing in IntelliBasic you can do certain things quicker if you write them directly in assembly language. It doesn't attempt to teach you assembly language though, but it does a really good job of teaching you how to make some games in IntelliBasic. So it's actually quite good, quite well written, and a good introductory guide. So didn't take long to read, yeah, and it read well. So highly recommended if you like playing with that sort of thing. So very good. Now I actually only early this last week I started watching season 3 of Blake 7. And the only season I've been missing on actual physical DVD is season 4. There was a copy up there that would look like it had been beaten to a pulp, so I wasn't interested in that one. And I kept on looking, and so I had a search, and a very nice copy of season 4 popped up. So I said I've got sort of the first disc of season 3, and I'm already into the second disc. So I'm quite looking forward to getting up to season 4. At the end of season 3, the Liberator is destroyed. I think because I believe that they might believe the show might have been cancelled, but they got renewed for one more season, and in season 4 they actually find another ship, and and have slightly different adventures. The cast is the newer cast, so from season 3 onwards the cast changes a little bit. But yeah, looking forward to getting into this one because it's been a long time since I've done any watched any season 4 episodes. There's quite strong stories, and once again, just like the other ones, you have the lovely all of the crew's faces on the discs, and your new one for the season is that girl there. So I've got a disc upside down. I believe that's Su Lin from memory. I haven't watched it for a very long time, but you still have Villa, Avon, is it Deanna, who only just interested in season 3, and Tarrant from season 3 as well. So and you get a new computer called Slave, who's a very grovelling type computer. It's actually quite amusing, and there's some quite well written stories in season 4. So very much looking forward to it. You can tell I'm a bit of a Blake 7 nut. So now the other thing that arrived, and I do apologise, I have not had any time at all to play with it. I've only had it for probably this last week, and it's part of a Kickstarter that I backed called Nest Maker. Now I backed it to support the guys. I write my Nest games in assembly language myself, so I haven't really had a go at the Nest Maker of making any games myself, but the guys are actively still working on it and making very good tutorials for those that want to get into it. But as part of my Kickstarter thing that I backed, I got this very well packaged and looking device, which is basically a cartridge flasher. So it plugs into your USB port, and there's a cartridge slot in there. They've given one empty cartridge, but it's got a proper shell, a little sticker that you can stick on there. So you pop that in there, like that, plug it into your computer, and then you can actually flash it to an actual cartridge and then try it in a real system. And you could buy more of these, and you could produce your own games if you wanted to. Although I usually leave that up to the guys at CollectorVision. So it's reasonably well put together. It's got a little bit of a join error there, but I mean, like, it didn't really need a case. But I just backed the thing with a case because it'd keep it neater, and it's actually pretty cool, like a little mini NES itself. But I haven't had a chance to try it, and I do apologise. But I assume I just plug it into a computer, and probably the Nest Maker software will allow me to program it, and I can probably use other software to program cartridges as well. I have lots of programmers and things for various ROM chips and PIC chips here. Some of the stuff I do in real life involves PIC chips, so won't be a problem for me. But at some stage, when I get a proper chance to try it out, I'll maybe do a video with a bit of a demonstration myself. Unless the guys at Nest Maker already have. If so, and I find that, I'll link it down to this video. Right, so there's lots of actual pickups this month. Once again, a little time poor, but I have happy that I've made a little bit of progress. This room is still an absolute mess. This is the first weekend where I'll be home all weekend with virtually no interruptions other than maybe a little bit of minor kid shuttling. So I'm actually hoping to really, after I make this video, is to really get stuck in here and start shifting some things around, rearranging things, and getting things a little tidier, because I haven't done an actual room tour for coming up to 2 years, so probably about time I did that. And also it'd be nice to have the room in a state where I thought I could actually do that and keep it that way, so it's no good having your game room in a mess. Now there's another thing that I did, which was very early in February. I went to a thing called Pin Crawl, hosted by they're called the Pinball Mafia up here in northern Tasmania, where basically a group of guys, like-minded guys who love their pinball, they hold a pinball tournament. There were 13 attendees. I dropped into one of the members, Justin's place, beforehand to say hello, and also to have a go on his machines. He's actually got I think 13 or 14 machines just himself. So while I'm nattering on here, you will see some video of both Justin's place first, and then a little look around at Steve's place, which I actually hosted. Now we went last year. We actually did go to 3 places, so it was an actual pin crawl. This one, the whole thing was just held in Steve's shed. And we used a new scoring system, actually made by me, to help things out, which made things go a lot smoother. And we knew how we were going throughout the tournament, rather than having to wait for the end and wait for all the scores to be added up. And out of 13 people, considering I was the only one there that doesn't actually physically own a pinball machine, I came 7th, so I'm actually quite pleased with that. I was a little disappointed with how I went on a couple of the titles. Now, to put it in retrospect, the only practice I really get is using something like Pinball Arcade. So, you know, Pinball Arcade is good, but it doesn't equate the same, especially with the controls and the feel, as using a real pinball. So one of the games I was a little disappointed on is I normally get a high score on Star Trek Next Generation all the time. When it came to because you only get one go at each of the games, when I did my one go, I absolutely fluffed it. So that's one where I could have upped the stakes a little bit. But I actually got the highest score on it's a pinball called Black Rose, which is one I've previously said from last year that if I was going to buy a pinball, that may be one of the first ones on my list to target. But it'll be a while before I get into pinballs. I need to stop buying arcade machines for a start. But I had a really good time, and I really appreciated being invited by the guys, and will happily go back again. My fellow local friends didn't get to go this time, except for Aaron, who I mentioned earlier with the arcade boards. He went this last weekend, and apparently while he was playing Justin's Metallica pinball, it blew a solenoid. So we're calling Aaron the pinball wrecker at the moment, so he'll be hunted down by the pinball mafia. He'll have to watch out. Alright, so, and as I said, I really enjoyed that. That was a great event, and I know I really do like pinball. It's just that I've used up all the space in this room with the other stuff that I collect, and they are a lot of money, so it'll probably be a couple of years before I'm able to get a pinball, but I would like to get one eventually, so never say never. Also another little, so before we sign off, I did actually make some more progress on Sydney Hunter Caverns of Death for the original Nintendo. I have, which is part of Kickstarter campaign for CollectorVision, one of the stretch goals in fact. And I have made quite a bit of progress. I've got most of the mechanics working. Sydney Hunter can throw his boomerang and hit enemies. Enemies have different hit points. You have to hit them multiple times. When you kill them, you get a score. If an enemy touches you, it kills you, and your lives decrease. And there's an animation when you die. I've also fixed up a lot of the colour glitches and things like that. I've made a separate video on it, which I'll put a link down below. And if I remember, I'll put some more footage up here, but probably won't fit it all in because it's a bit longer. Level 1 works completely. Level 2, I need to finish off entering the map. I've made a couple of entry errors when I'm entering the map, so you can't actually finish level 2 at the moment. And I need to enter the rest of the levels. I have all the level designs from the guys from JF at CollectorVision. I've just really got to get all the data in. So to do, I'd like to do a little bit of animation when the boomerang hits an enemy. So a little bit of a hit animation there. All the music's working, but there's no sound effects yet. There's an option screen to do, and that also allows you to, because you can get a code for the level, so you can start from a particular level, got to implement that, and playtesting. So it's actually a lot closer than it is. I mean, I know of a couple of bugs in there that I've got to fix, but it is generally playable now. Works on a controller, works on a real system as well, so it's coming along quite well. And hopefully I will have some more big news on a homebrew for the CollectorVision and MSX in March. That's in another video soon. So anyway, without me rambling on too much longer, I'm Electric Adventures. Thanks to all my subscribers, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.